Caregivers, have you ever felt like nothing, I mean nothing is going right? Well, cheer up and welcome to Dave the Caregiver's Caregiver radio program, where you'll learn how to avoid that dreaded thing called caregiver burnout and how to survive the grief process. You know, with roughly 100 million caregivers in the U.S. and Canada alone, that's about a third of the population. That means that everyone probably knows someone caring for a loved one. Join Dave and his guests now and every Wednesday at noon Pacific Time as they discuss avoiding caregiver burnout and surviving grief. So find a comfortable place to relax, kick up your feet, and prepare to feel better and to receive practical tips and tools that you can start using immediately to get you through today and every day so you can survive your tomorrows. But not just survive, but to live life fully and abundantly. Yes, you heard me right. That is a possible goal to achieve. And now, here's your host, Dave Nassaney.
From LA, a big LA, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, coming to you live globally through many, many platforms, including iTunes and YouTube and Stitcher and Blog Talk and Mixcloud and Listen Notes and Blueberry. And I just discovered a couple more the other day. So who knows where we are listening to. We're all over the world. All of our video casts and podcasts are saved for your later on-demand listening pleasure, including, of course, our website, caregiverscaregiver.com. And if that's too hard to remember, you could also try caregiverdave.com. That's a little easier. And our goal here is to do our very best to help you avoid that dreaded thing called caregiver burnout. Yes. And we have an exciting show planned for you today. Two of the best guests I think we've ever had on. It's Adrienne and myself. And our guest couldn't make it. Something came up. She had to babysit a grandchild. Can you imagine, Adrienne, a grandchild bumping us? Come on. Today we'll be interviewing us, and we actually put links out on Facebook to make this our very first live show in a very long time. You can actually call in, not call in, but you can go to the link that's on Facebook, and you can join us, and you can ask us anything you want. So we also talk about grief and loss here. And the one thing we know about caregivers, by the way, is that they're caring and sacrificial. And they have a tiny little problem. They're very prone to burnout because they tend to put everyone else's needs above their own. Imagine that. And that's why 30% of them die before their loved ones do, and 60% become hospitalized needing a caregiver of their own. This is a problem. Well, we can learn something from the airlines who tell us in the event of an emergency, put your mask on first before your loved one. And what an amazing metaphor, huh? Take care of you first, but not out of selfishness, out of survival. And we also talk about grief and loss, because anytime we suffer loss, everybody suffers loss every single day. I mean, they lose a girlfriend, they lose their watch, they lose a loved one, which is not funny. They lose their health, they lose their ability to drive, whatever it is. They go through a form of grief. And sometimes it starts with denial. Sometimes it continues with some kind of bargaining. How can I get out of this? Then it's, anger. I'm so pissed off. And then it's depression. There's nothing I can do. And then if you just hang in there, you will reach that place called acceptance. There is a light at the end of this tunnel. And for those who don't, the consequences are dire. So depression is a very dangerous place to be, and if you've been in it a long time, go see your doctor, and it could be something clinical. They can get you out of it. Now, unfortunately, there's only one way out of the grief process. You got to go through it. No shortcuts. So hopefully we can help you through your grief and your loss if you feel like you're stuck and you're ready to move on with life. And I do want to thank my last week's guest. It was a great show, and you can see that show also on caregiverscaregiver.com. We've got over 200 shows now over a 4-year period. That's a lot of shows. Have I been doing it this long? How long have you been with me, Adrienne? At least a couple of years, I think.
2 years, little more than 2 years.
Yeah. And just an update. Just got back from New York, and can you believe Adrienne and I could not connect? We were both so busy. I don't know. There's something wrong with this world when you're only just a few miles. And I found out that I went to Washington Square and I was just a mile away from her house. I didn't know it. We tried to connect another time, but you know what? We're coming back, Adrian, because I've
I
got
got sick.
so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you just yeah-ing me?
No. I'm agreeing.
Oh
We
yeah, I
will
am coming
connect.
back. Almost all of the producers I spoke with are from New York. So I told Charlene, you have to come back. She wasn't too excited with the grimy part of New York. Everything's kind of dirty and grimy, and the sidewalks are just so crowded with people. I mean, you can't even go into the street to get into a cab. You'll get hit by a bike. And I've hit many pedestrians coming in the opposite direction, head-on collision. I'm sure there's a way to avoid them. I just haven't learned how to, not hit people when you're walking or when you're running to catch a subway. Well, welcome to the show, Adrienne.
Thank you.
This isn't your first rodeo, I know, and hopefully there are people out there. Once we get used to, I think I'm going to do this from now on, just invite people to join us and call in, and maybe I'll advertise it in advance and let them know that we're going to do this because not everyone is on Facebook at any particular moment in time. Maybe you can advertise it as well. Be a great way to connect with our audience. And why don't we talk about today? Oh, I learned something speaking to all these producers because they're all different. Some are doing magazines, some are radio, some are television, some are just syndicated TV that, nobody's ever heard of, but they've got
Right.
millions of viewers. And so I tried, I've got like 88 emails to send out, and my thinking was just send one email out to everybody, but I just couldn't do it because everyone has just a little niche, and you need to like tailor your pitch to whatever they're doing. And so I got
Absolutely.
7 pitches now. And can you believe I've been booked on a cooking blog? I mean, can you see the connection there? And Investors Business
Oh,
Daily, is
Charlene.
interested in me. Yeah, Charlene, and she's still a gourmet cook, putting on dinner parties with one arm and one leg tied behind her back. They thought that was an interesting story. And the financial
Yeah.
people, they're interested in the fact that caregivers are getting fired and have to quit their jobs because the responsibilities are too great at home, and that they got to start thinking of other forms of income, like starting a business in your garage or an internet business while your grandma's sleeping or whatever, or just finding out what government programs can assist you, or what VA programs, what local, state, uh, and so on. And so there are investment and financial people who are interested in our story. There are teen magazines. Can you imagine how a teen magazine would be interested in our story? Do you know what the common thread
Absolutely.
is there? Did you know, and I didn't know this,
We deal with young caregivers.
I did not know that there are 1.6 million children and teens caring for their loved ones, and many times
18%.
that is incredible.
18% of the caregivers in the United States are
Between the
teenagers.
ages of 8 and 18. And there's no
Yeah.
laws protecting them. The labor laws don't protect them. Many of these kids are subject to the same stresses that we adults are. Many of them are just alone with grandma all day long while their mother or father goes to work or whatever because there's no one else. They don't get breaks. They're lucky if they get lunch. And so they're interested in that story. And it goes on and on. There's a dog, a very popular dog blog that has millions of viewers, and he's interested because
Sure.
my wife has a dog, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
support dog, and that dog is the most important person in her life next
I'm
to me.
next to you or
But
not?
I don't know because that dog's allowed to lay on a bedspread that I am not allowed to lay on, so I don't know.
Ooh.
And so I've learned a lot this whole process, and I'm actually pitching the ones who had poker faces, who didn't seem that interested. I'm just trying, well, what can I say to them that would make them interested? And many of them are responding. So I'm growing
Mm-hmm.
and I'm excited. It's lots of fun, and I've been booked on like 5 or 6 already, just a couple of weeks back, and the rest of them, the bigger they are, like Good Morning America and Dr. Oz and Today, and maybe even The View.
They have to they
Yeah,
program
there's
you.
higher ups that they got to go for. And The View didn't seem interested at first, but then I have a celebrity pitch, which I thought was interesting, and I kind of use it a little bit, but I went on it more like, you know, how can Henry Winkler, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Hillary Clinton, and Queen Latifah save your life? Just kind of hook. And then you read that they are caregivers, and there's many other celebrity caregivers, and that they've learned some things, and we can follow their advice and on what they do, and blah blah blah. And some of them are interested. Well, enough about me. What have you been doing, Adrienne? You just got back from Fire Island, huh?
Yeah, we were out car shopping
Car shopping?
we rented a car and we've been shopping for a car for
Nobody wants a
four
car in New York, do
days.
they? There's nowhere to park.
I will
Okay.
pay to park. I found a garage I can afford.
It's like
I,
it's like the
I, I,
Seinfeld episode, well, where are we going to park the car? No, I got a spot over here.
oh
No,
right, I know,
George Costanza's
George
father, right?
and
Jerry. Is it really that tough? It seemed to be.
yeah, yeah, we have a friend who has 3 vehicles and juggles them on the street
Yeah,
every,
like George Costanza.
daily. And that's tough. 3 vehicles. That's tough.
Well, what does he want him for? I mean, does he just go around the city? Does he go to Connecticut? I mean, what's he want a car for?
He's an actor and he has jobs and gigs in other states and, other locations. And then he has a business where he needs a van where he has to bring stuff with him and
I see.
one for pleasure.
And What's your
So he
uh,
has,
what's your reasons?
I have a house. Have
You
to
have
go to the house every weekend for 7 months. I have to go to the house for 7 weekends.
So you guys drive to Fire
Yeah.
Island? There's no subway that goes
Well,
there?
no subway. It's too far away. There's the Long Island Railroad,
You
but
don't like
then
that?
from the railroad, you take a van to the ferry and then the ferry to Fire Island.
Hmm.
And then there are no cars on Fire Island.
Well, I know all this doesn't sound very interesting to anybody, but I've been watching Kelly and
Well,
Ryan. They
Fire
they
Island's
talk about this
interesting.
kind of stuff all the time, and they've got huge ratings. So maybe there's something to
Right,
it.
right.
Anyway, I think people want to
Well,
know who you are, know
it's
who
what
I
makes
am.
us it
Human.
makes us who we are.
It's the human side of us.
Right.
So I'm still shocked at the teen, and you got to mature really fast when you become a child caregiver. It's like you have no life, you have no childhood, no fun, can't go out and play with the kids like everybody else. That must really scar you as a person. Someone told me
Well,
they know.
I know when I was a kid, my mother didn't want to go visit her mother in the hospital all the time, and she
Hmm.
would send me up to the Bronx on the
How old were you?
subway. This is when the subways, I must have been about 9 or 10.
Oh my gosh. So you were
And
one.
and this was probably my initiation into caregiving.
Wow.
Um, Other than my grandmother's migraines, but when she would have heart failure and she'd be hospitalized. And then there were oxygen tents. There were no cannulas. People were put in oxygen tents. So I was traumatized, many times seeing her in the state that she was in,
Wow.
never even thinking that she wasn't going to get better, but just, seeing someone in an oxygen tent as a young person is a little, scary.
So what's the
So that
solution? Is there
was,
a solution? What can we do about that?
well, I mean,
There's nothing.
it didn't really impact my life for that long. um,
Well, you're one of the lucky ones then.
on a regular basis, but it certainly had an impact. Um, is there a solution? Well, it has to be talked about. And these kids,
Should laws be passed? Labor laws?
well,
In
there ought to be a law for an awful lot of things in caregiving. You know that.
New York's
I
got an
mean,
awful lot of laws, don't they?
we're the invisible patient. Caregivers are. Um, Nobody thinks of taking care of us. We're just here to take care of everybody else. And whatever happens to us until it affects the other patient, nobody really pays attention. Um, Regardless of whether or not we lose our jobs and have to give up income and don't get any money from the state, or you know Medicare doesn't pay for everything, Medicaid doesn't pay for everything, so
Yeah.
and we save the government a lot of money every year. But
We do.
one thing, as someone who wanted to start a space for caregivers to come and get emotional relief, I knew, and information. I did know from the very beginning I could not solve the financial problem, no matter how much money I collected. Um, Even if you gave some respite scholarships away, so you could help a few people now and
Yeah,
then, but you can't solve this problem without
yeah. Even
an awful
Hawaii,
lot of legislation.
Started first in the nation. Hopefully, it's the first and not the only. But
Yeah.
$1,500 to every caregiver, whether you work a 40-hour job or not. And they only
Ooh,
had a certain amount of money, and it only went as far as 35 caregivers. But it was a start. It was a pilot
it was a
program.
start. It only went
35,
as far as
35
35
caregivers got $1,500 a month for a year.
per
And,
year.
for a year. Do the math. 1,500 times
I think they overshot the
35.
mark. Why didn't they lower it to 500 a month and
What
get
can you
more
do with
people?
what can you do with $500 a month, though? Maybe they had
Well,
to really prove that they were like destitute. But
yeah,
even with a 40-hour job, if they were making minimum wage, you still got to pay rent, you still got to buy food,
yeah.
prescriptions, medicine. I mean, it doesn't go long, does it?
And you have to be available, so you may have to leave your job in the middle of the day for
Yeah.
an emergency.
That's why I say
And not
learn computers, learn how to start an internet business. So many businesses are
at
started.
home.
Yeah. I mean, what are you
Yeah.
passionate about? Ask yourself, what are you passionate about? What do you love to do? If you love to fix bikes, start a bike fixing blog or something that you can charge a membership fee. I
Or
mean, there's just so many things they can do.
even just do it in your, if it's something like bikes, fix them in your garage,
Yeah.
and you won't have to leave home. But you could do videos, instructional videos, and charge for them. The thing is, there's so much content at this point to sift through that does not charge. Where you can just watch the podcasts, not the podcasts, the videos, and learn.
Yeah.
It's not an easy way to necessarily make money.
Yeah.
But yes, internet
Only limited by
businesses
your
are
creativity.
right, right, and you have to find a need and fill it.
Yeah. It doesn't matter where you live either. Well, this is a good time
No,
for a break. Let's take a break and we'll be right back. Dave Nassaney, the Caregiver's Caregiver, has just released his 6th book entitled It's My Life Too. Reclaim your caregiver sanity by learning when to say yes and when to say no. It was specifically written for caregivers who know they should be putting their needs first, but just don't know how. Dave is the sole caregiver to his wife, Charlene, since 1996. He knows firsthand what caregivers are going through because he is one. And he now speaks all across the country offering caregivers his incredible caregiver support package. Even the airlines tell us that in the event of an emergency, to put your oxygen mask on first before you help your child with their mask. They know that those who don't heed their advice often black out, thus becoming unable to help either themselves or their child. And caregivers are exactly the same way. It's my life too. Reclaim your caregiver sanity by learning when to say yes and when to say no. Will help caregivers who are neglecting their sleep, diet, and social life, and learn to put their needs first. Pick up your copy today, or buy one for your special caregiver. On sale everywhere, and at caregiverscaregiver.com. Hey, we're back with Dave Nassaney and Adrienne Gruberg. And here we are, Adrienne in New York and I in California. We're both enjoying 82-degree weather approximately. And I was telling you before the show, and I don't think I got an opportunity to finish, that Hawaii is coming up for me August 16th to September 8th. And that's like, how many days is that? That's 24
That's a lot.
days. Well,
That's a
apparently it's
lot
not
of
enough.
days.
It's not enough because I have scheduled 11 events. I have 4 interviews on television. I have a radio interview, a magazine interview. I've got a conference I'm doing at the University of Hawaii. I've got another book signing and meet and greet at the University of Hawaii bookstore. I've got a caregiver group that I promised I would speak with. I've got Percy's 2 events. One is 300 medical professionals. I'm doing a breakout session for like 100 people twice, and then another caregiver session, 3,000 caregivers, same 2 breakout sessions, 100 people
Wow.
each. And
That's
I
a lot
don't,
of people.
yeah, that's like, if you do the math, that's like 1 event every other day. So I probably should stay an extra week just to recuperate, but I don't think I
Oh,
want to pay the
yes. I think you
penalties.
have to do that.
Oh, but the airlines, they're just so, they penalize you, and I don't know, I shouldn't be such a cheapskate. We'll see. And so New York was fun. We got to speak at NASDAQ and at they tell me it's the prestigious Harvard Club in New York. Got to speak there. And we got our face on the Jumbotron, which I put up over here so you can all see that if you haven't already online. And I'm just so darn proud that my wife and I, we finally got our name up in lights in Times Square. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, they say. Frankie said that. Well, let's talk about caregiving and how to stay alive and how to stay out of the morgue and how to stay out of the hospital. It's unbelievable. I keep quoting these statistics, 30% die and 60% get sicker. And, they're just numbers. But then I'm constantly meeting people who died and who got sicker. And I say, statistic, they became, yeah, okay, it's real. And
It's real.
in my experience, it seems like, yeah, 2 to 1 get sick over dying, but many of them get unfortunately.
But when you say they're only numbers, when you think about what that total number is,
Well,
in terms
67
of
million.
millions of people,
Let me do the
you're
math on
talking
that.
about a lot of people.
Yeah.
Where it's not like, 15 people.
67 million times 35. God, that's 23,450,000 people die as a result of caregiving. I don't know what the number
That's
is for heart attacks or whatever, right? 30% of 67
no, well,
million.
no. How did you come up with that number? How
Um,
many caregivers are you figuring as, how many people are you figuring as
six,
caregivers?
the the National Association of Caregivers say that there's 65.7 million caregivers out there.
Right.
Everyone's got their own number,
I
but
believe there are more,
their
but
numbers
yeah,
are all too low because they're not counting the kids. They're not counting
no.
the paid ones. These are just family caregivers.
Long
They're not
distance,
counting the
part-time,
people that they have no idea who's out there doing it, or the neighbor
right.
looking in
And
on their
it's
neighbor.
amazing how many people refuse to identify themselves as caregivers.
Yeah, why is that? Is
They
that a
don't
form of
they don't
denial?
think, I don't know if it's shame, um, or
Why would they
pride
be?
on the part of the patient, or I really don't know why they hesitate. But they may not even really know the word and what it
Hmm,
means.
yeah. So I think there's 10 million people in New York. So I mean, when I pitch New York stations, I do the math. I says, there's 10 million uh, population. So roughly 30% of 10 million is 3 million. There's 3 million caregivers in New York, and about a third of them are going to
Hmm.
die. That's 1 million people are going to die, and these are, could be your viewers. We could be saving some lives, and so it's a powerful argument.
Yep. And there are things, I mean, I know when I was caregiving for Steve, um, my my health was not my primary focus. So whatever made him happy food-wise was the food that I was eating. And I was living on a diet of chocolate chip cookies and bagels and tuna fish salad. I mean, and that is not a good diet. It's just not.
Yeah.
I could survive on it and I might even have enjoyed it, but it's not healthy. So, in terms of learning to put yourself there first with that oxygen mask, it's also taking care of yourself so that you can maintain your health through this whole thing, so that you don't get sick. Because if your system doesn't have the food in it that's going to fight illness, you're going to get sick.
And everybody knows that, but how can they stay motivated? Because like this morning I got up, I have so much to do, and I force myself to go to the gym every week because I've got a trainer that I am paying to see because when my back got better, the doctor says you don't need surgery anymore. Go join a gym, work on your core. So, I don't want to just stop going, but I'm supposed to be doing it throughout the week. And so I'm saying, well, you can do it in between your stuff. I've got at a gym right over there. You can see the barbells. And
I
so
can.
I was trying to motivate myself. And if I'm the caregiver's caregiver and I struggle to motivate myself to do this, how much more so the ones who are really, really struggling. But I wanted to read something from my book, The Caregiver's Caregiver, or it's my life too.
My
Can't
life
keep,
too.
can't
Yeah.
keep track of my titles. Um,
Oh, you're so prolific.
An attitude of gratitude. This chapter is called, or it's a section actually. It's been said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Humans were made to be goal-oriented. Where there is no vision, the people perish, so says Proverbs. Boredom will usually creep in if we are not striving towards a goal. Balance, however, is the necessary ingredient in any genius. Otherwise, the line that separates genius and insanity gets blurry. And I know a lot of uh, crazy genius people.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, we get into trouble whenever we get out of balance. Too much work, too much play, too much anything makes us unbalanced. Get into the habit of turning your lemons into lemonade, which reminds me of a very old story that I will retell only for the benefit of those who may have never heard it. There was once a very optimistic boy who had an extremely positive attitude about life. He was told to go shovel out the horse manure from the barn. Well, he turned to that manure with that shovel like a madman. When asked why he was shoveling so enthusiastically, he replied, well, with all of this horse manure here, there just has to be a pony under it somewhere. Now that's a positive attitude. I've even learned lessons from the movie Finding Nemo. Uh, That Disney movie, Dora and Marlin were trapped in the whale, if you'll recall, and they were hanging
Mm-hmm.
on to its uvula. Did I say that right?
Uvula.
Uvula. For their lives. Then Dora heard a voice that said, "Just let go and everything will be fine." Well, the situation was hopeless and they had nothing to lose, so they both reluctantly let go, wondering if they were falling to their death. Instead, they fell into a pool of water and then were blown out of the whale via its blowhole. Moral of the story is to always have hope, never give up, and to listen to that still small voice in our heads. I know, not very scientific, but it worked for them, and it always seems to work for Charlene and I, or me. I have a poster on my wall with a quote from Pastor Chuck Swindoll. I think he's dead now, I think. If he's not, I'm sorry. The more I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It's more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. I just say a big amen to that, because I know that to be
Amen.
true myself.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, with that, we're going to take another break, so don't go away. We'll be right
Okay.
back.
Anytime we suffer loss, we grieve. And a lot of people don't realize what even the grief process is. But it could be 5 to 7 steps ranging from denial, I don't believe this is happening, anger, oh my gosh, I'm so upset this is happening, to a form of bargaining, how can I get out of this, to depression, which is a very serious thing because that often leads to suicide. And then finally, after you realize you have no more control over your situation and you're totally okay with the new normal that it brings, that wonderful, wonderful place called acceptance.
Being a caregiver takes a special person with passion and compassion. But even you can become a little burned out from time to time. The Caregiver's Caregiver radio show was developed to help you overcome obstacles, adversity, and burnout, as well as just having a place to rest, relax, and recharge your batteries. We've all been there, and you're not alone. Now, you can take the Caregiver's Caregiver with you. Get the top 25 radio shows in convenient form that plugs right into your USB car stereo or computer. Learn the techniques, tips, and encouragement we all need to better handle the day-to-day challenges. For around $1 per show, just $29.77, get the credit card-sized USB card to have with you anytime you need a caregiver's pick-me-up. Just go to DaveTheCaregiversCaregiver.com and order yours today. Go to DaveTheCaregiversCaregiver.com now. Consider it an investment in you, and ultimately, an investment in them.
Hey, welcome back. Dave Nassaney, the Caregiver's Caregiver. My beautiful co-host, Adrienne Gruberg. I like to think that
Thank you.
I'm the spit and she's the polish. The spit and the polish.
Ah.
Well, what are we going to do now, Adrienne? We're the lucky caregivers because we survived, right?
Yes. I mean, I was focused.
I don't think luck
Whilst
had
he
anything to
was
do with it, by
ill.
the way.
Hmm?
I don't think luck had anything to do with it, by the way.
No.
It was
But
deliberate.
I was sure that I was going to survive the caregiving. It never even occurred to me that
Really?
I was maybe because I hadn't heard the statistics that that I was going to be one of the third that succumbed. But
You're on a need-to-know basis.
I mean,
I'm
you
glad
know,
they didn't tell me what I was in store for, because I would have probably.
yeah. I mean, I knew it would be hard work, and I knew that it would really try my patience, and I knew that I was getting into mother-son territory that I really didn't want to get into, and I mean, there were a lot of things that I was aware of, but I took every day as a new day and started it fresh, and whatever the day brought, I dealt with. Um, I just I never thought that the time would come where I would take no for an answer. That was me.
Let me ask you about your
Um,
emotions, because emotions play a big part in this. How many times during your caregiving experience did you experience anger? Was it often?
daily. I mean, I experienced anger. I experienced anger a great deal, but
What was the common thread
I
about the
learned
anger?
to what I learned to do with the anger was express it in a better way. It was like, okay, I'm here and I'm here for you, but this is what I'm going to need from you now. So instead of Steve loved to bicker. Um, there was something in his personality that made him need to win every discussion, every argument, every point, every issue.
Oh, I hate people like
And
that.
that's very difficult because he was always right. That was his personality. I'm always right. Um, unless you can show me. So I had to, if I was going to go into this, I really did have to set my boundaries and let him know that, look, you're no picnic. I didn't put it that way, but you're no picnic. And if I got to do this and I want to do this, um, I I have to have certain things that you are going to do for me. And I needed him to stop baiting me and the petty arguments because there were major issues that needed to be dealt with where I really needed to be there and be all there for him and not wish him dead. You know, because, I mean, I don't care how good your marriage is. There are times you just sort of say, get out of my life. It's just it's human nature when you've
To
just had
expect
it up
the
to
anger.
here. Yeah, I mean, and likewise when I had my knee surgery this year, and I had my boyfriend here for 53 days from California. He was in New York taking care of me before I went in for surgery. I sat him down and I said, "Look, this isn't going to be fun. You're going to need patience. And there are times you're going to be scared. And talk to me about it. Don't keep it to yourself. And tell me when I'm out of line. And just, just it really is sharing. You can
Yeah.
continue to share that burden. So, you know, it helped me be a better patient.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as caregiving went, it helped me through it because I was a referee between mother and son half the
Mhm.
time as well, and that between a Jewish mother and her little baby boy, that was not a walk in the
So it's not a
park.
Jewish American
So
princess, it's a Jewish American son, a Jas.
it's a Jewish American prince.
Prince.
Um,
Of course.
no, and I'm not the prin. I'm not a princess. I don't expect anyone to do anything that I wouldn't do by myself. Scrub floors, clean toilets, you
Yeah.
name it, I'll do it. Dress wounds, clean up vomit. Empty, empty. I can't even
I
remember
get it. I get it. Let's talk about
bags.
sadness. So it's okay to be angry, expect to be angry, funnel your anger into productive ways. How about sadness? Because a lot of times you say,
I allowed
it
my.
hurts. I feel disappointed. I feel
I
sad. I feel unhappy. I wish, whatever.
Well, I
Mm.
also had realistic expectations, so I knew what I was in for. I had been told up front that um, the cancer was going to take Steve. So, despite the fact that I knew that there would be good years in there, I also knew that ultimately it would come back. And even though we never gave up hope, because there are new things on the horizon every day, and you have that, um, things change and you lose things. You don't just lose, like you're not just losing your memory or losing your appetite or losing this or that, or your ability to drive. You are losing the person that you knew, and that person does not have to have Alzheimer's for you to lose the person that you knew. You know that well, and you have to be accepting and realistic. And I I pre-grieved a lot. I knew I was going to have a loss. I knew there were going to be a lot of losses along the way, and I just allowed myself to feel them. And I
Well,
shared them. I did not go through those alone. I shared them with Steve. I did not share them with, I mean, maybe I shared them with my shrink, but I also
I got to
shared them
shrink
with
at the same
Steve.
time.
Oh, sure.
But
You can't tell
good,
Steve
good advice.
everything.
So let's talk about
Yeah.
fear. So we should expect to be fearful. It's painful. I feel worried. I feel afraid. I feel scared. I feel whatever.
I felt a lot of that. I mean, I felt I'm not equipped to do all of this financial stuff on my own that I'm going to be left with, and how am I going to do it? I've been sheltered from some of it, and he kept saying, "Oh, you're smart. You'll learn how to do it." And it's like, well, that doesn't help me with the way I'm feeling right now, because right now I feel like, oh my God, I'm going to be left alone, and I'm not going to be able to take care of myself, and I'll, I'll be alone for the rest of my life, and you won't be here, and I'll miss you, and so there are all of the things that you worry about. I'm very lucky that financially I'm secure, but there are plenty of people in my position who have the worry that they don't have to worry about how they're going to manage their money. They have to be worried whether or not they're going to have any money,
Right.
especially depending on how long whatever illness it is continues. So there are lots of things to be fearful about.
Yeah,
And
that's for
when
sure.
you that the fear also adds to the anger. Um, you just and depression. I mean, it's all cyclical,
And
I
there's
mean, what
blaming too, right?
anger is depression turned inward, and fear creates depression, and it's all
They're all
it's a
cousins.
lovely ball of wax.
How
Yeah,
about
yeah.
remorse and apologies? I apologize. I feel embarrassed. I'm sorry. I feel ashamed. I'm willing, whatever.
I never felt ashamed. I never felt embarrassed.
Were you
I never
apologizing a
felt
lot for stuff or
remorse.
no?
What?
Were you apologizing for stuff a lot?
No, I was doing my best.
Good.
I mean, if I wasn't doing everything I could have done, like, I mean, if had I stayed out till 3 o'clock in the morning, I suppose I might have come home and apologized. But that never happened. We stayed home. I think the year before Steve died, we missed 3 baseball games, 3 Met games on television. Um,
You're both you're
we
both big
sat and
fans.
we just, oh God, yes, we have a little brick at City Field that, you know, I have a I have a replica of here.
You still
I bought
go?
him that for one of his birthdays. He was a huge Met fan. He'd been a
Hmm.
Dodger fan. And when the
Mhm.
Dodgers left Brooklyn, forget it. Wrote them off.
Like Mr. Wonderful, you're
Um,
dead to me.
totally, totally. My father was the same with the Giants. You're dead to me. The Giants and Met fans all went to the Mets. No one went to the Yankees. Those National Leaguers went to the Mets, not the Yankees.
You still go to Met games?
So, huh?
You still go to the ball games?
I go to Yankee games with. I'm a traitor. I have to tell you
You're a
that
traitor.
the first time I posted my profile on like Match.com or one of the single sites, it was like Yankee fans need not apply. Well, that's not on there anymore.
Oh my,
I mean,
that's
now we go
serious
to Yankee
business.
games. We go to Yankee games, and I mean, I'm I'm still a Mets fan, but it's not like I know everybody's batting average, and I don't even know the names of the players on the team anymore. There were years that Steve and I from city to city and followed the team around the East Coast.
Well, that's an important
As
thing to have in
far as
common.
Houston, I mean, I remember there was one day, and I'm sorry if I'm name dropping, but Steve and Regis Philbin were
Hmm.
good friends, and we went to see his act in Atlantic City, and we stayed in his hotel, and we went up to his room to have lunch. And he was so jealous of Steve because he had a wife who liked baseball and actually knew baseball and understood baseball and the players. I mean, I really was into baseball. I really
Wow,
loved it.
you're the perfect wife.
Well, not perfect by
Now,
a long shot,
were
but
you ever criticized for things you did or perceived to do them wrong, or did they feel like you needed to apologize, stuff like that?
Steve,
Tried to make you feel
Steve ever
guilty?
criticized me?
Steve or his mother or anybody for that matter. You know how
Well,
people try to
Sylvia
make you
thought
feel
that
guilty.
Well, Steve's mother thought the sun rose and set on me, but Steve never stopped criticizing.
Mm.
As I said, he liked to bicker.
But
So
you would not play
I didn't
along by
bite.
apologize. Oh, I'm sorry that happened, or something.
No, I didn't bite unless there was a real reason like, oh God, I'm sorry I forgot the chocolate chip cookies. Yeah, okay. That was pretty much the extent of what the apologies could be like,
Uh-huh.
because life was totally focused on caregiving.
Yeah.
And caregiving for me included taking care of me. Caregiving was not exclusively taking care of them.
Well, it was very astute of you. Most people are not at that level.
That
But
that that was
you were describing yourself being insecure. I just couldn't relate because I know you, and I'm saying, wow, this is a powerhouse of a woman. Who is this person? And look who you've become. And
yeah,
it,
look who I've
and it,
become.
and it came out of, something that most people would say was a tragedy and was bad, and of course it was bad. But
and
most good
and
things do come out of bad things.
and I try and tell people, um, God knows on our site you hear about a lot of loss, and there are so many in the after caregiving group, you need to let these people know there is life after caregiving.
Yeah,
It's a
they lost.
huge void. It's a
They
huge void.
their identity was so wrapped up in what they did and not who they are
Yes.
that when they were no longer a caregiver, they were lost. They said, "Oh no, now what
There,
do I do? Oh no."
there's all this time that was spent doing one thing. Oh my God, what do I do with it now? Well, there are lots of
Get your
different.
life
What
back.
did you want to do? Now think about what you want to do.
And that's a foreign
And
concept for a lot of people. Think about
for a
what
lot
I
of
want to
people,
do. Yeah, because what I
yeah,
want to do is what you want to do. It's like,
right, exactly.
what do you want to do? Where do you want to
What do
eat?
you
Oh,
want to
where
do,
do you want to eat?
Marty?
No, where do
Yeah.
you want to eat? Don't you hate people like that? Well, where do you want to eat?
I mean, we've been in shopping for the car. It's been, well, I know what color car I want, but you're driving it too, so what color car do you really want? And I mean, it's only a vehicle, so yes, I have a particular aesthetic. I'm a designer, and my aesthetic is important to me, but so's my relationship. And I could say, okay, we'll go with the silver gray instead of the pearl. I mean, it's not that important. I mean, pick your battles and be who you are. I sound like Oprah, be your authentic self. That's,
Just find out what mountain you want to die on as
well,
your last stand, or at least try.
I mean, I would like to go back to certain places that I've visited in my past lives and experience them again in a new way.
Will
Um,
that happen?
and I don't know if I'll ever get back to living to spending time in West Africa, but it's one of those things that's in the back of my mind.
I didn't know you were in
I
West
don't know if
Africa.
I'll ever spend the summer in Paris.
Mm.
These are things that are my fantasies. And I
Paris
mean,
is
I want to
doable.
have
I don't know
these.
about Africa, but don't ever give up
Africa,
on
I lived in
Paris.
Africa. Yeah,
Yeah, but
Africa's doable.
it's so far away and it's so hard, isn't it? I mean, my image of Africa is the climate and the
Well,
jungle.
where I was, it was really primitive, and I loved it, and I would go back in a minute.
Really.
I loved it. So, I mean, we all have places and I painted there.
Mm.
So, I mean, I was thriving when I was in Africa. No TV when I
Wow.
was in Africa.
New York is so
So,
different.
New York is another world.
Well, listen,
New
it's
York's another
time.
world.
The time just flies on by. Can't believe this is 2018. Where did the millennium go, and S2K or Y2K?
Well, it's on my shelf right here, my New Year's card from 2000, from the year 2000 when the world was going to end.
So how do we get a hold of you if somebody wants to speak with you or write you something
Well,
or read
it's
your memoirs?
yeah, my memoirs are it's good. That's something I'm working on. It's Adrienne, Adrienne, at thecaregiverspace.org. And thecaregiverspace.org is the website, and all of the links to social media are on that page. And we've got great stories, magazine articles. It's when I say magazine articles, I mean it's a video magazine a digital magazine that we sort of put together. And then
Mm.
there's the Facebook page, which is very vibrant.
Yes, it is. And I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver. Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver.com or caregiverscaregiver.com or caregiverdave.com.
Yes.
I got a million of them.
Oh, my GoDaddy account is a trip.
The one I
number of
really
things
want,
that I'm
the one I really want is not available.
because I'm
Huh.
protecting so many,
I know,
you
and
know.
some people want like $100,000 for a domain name. Amazing. God bless them. But
I
mm,
know, I know.
and my last name is
Try
Nassaney,
putting,
and Nassaney.com is not available. And there aren't that many Nassaneys in the world. What were you going to say? Can you hear me?
could do,
I have
you just want
Nassaney.tv.
Nassaney.com without,
Yeah, so that
you have
I have
Nassaney.tv.
Nassaney.tv, which is, the next best thing. Com would be better. That way my email is dave@Nassaney.tv, and I don't have to repeat the
Mm-hmm.
Dave. Everyone should
Yeah,
have their last name.com, I think. So
I
Gruberger.com.
don't.
Then you can be Adrian@Gruberger.com. Check it out, see if
It's
it's available.
Gruberg.
What
There's
did I
no
say? Burger?
gur on the end of it.
Adrian Gruberg. You're right. I always get your name mixed up with Peter Hertzberger.
It's easy. There are lots of
I'll either
burgers
call
out
him
there.
Hertzberg or I'll call you Gruberger.
Yeah. Well,
But okay, so look for
this
see if
hour went very
Gruberg.com
quickly.
is available, and then you can have a cool email.
I'm not sure if Gruberg.com is available, but I have
That's a common name, isn't it?
Adrian.Gruberg.
That's a common name. All right,
No.
well, till next time. Next week we'll try to help me out by publicizing that they can call on and
Call in.
call in, not call in,
Hmm.
but what's the term when you have?
Well, there's the chat, and they can ask questions, and
Yeah,
we can answer them.
that'll be fun. I used to do that a long time ago,
It-
but it got too stressful. But I'm thinking it might not be stressful now if they just kind of
no,
do it the way they do it.
different.
Yeah, it was a different
Hmm.
platform before, and it was very stressful. And so now that I'm doing all these new things, I'm saying, well, what's one more new thing? What the heck, I'm
Your
already out of
your
my comfort
your
zone.
glibber,
My what?
yeah, you're more comfortable with it, and I mean you have your glibber. You can be
Yeah,
more
and
glib.
like I said before, if you could make it in New York, you could do anything. God bless you, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific and 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll try that and see if it works. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver radio show. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday at noon Pacific Time and anytime afterwards on podcast to catch more of Dave and his tips to caregivers on avoiding burnout and surviving the grief process right here on the Worldwide Block Talk Radio Network. Goodbye.